Are you feeling the calling to start or grow a business that is so aligned with you and everything that makes up who you are? Do you know that there has to be a way to do this without so much hustle and without chasing the latest shiny objects, but you're just not sure how? You can definitely have a dream business that improves, not consumes your life, that allows you to work with soulmate clients while helping you and your family financially and in all ways. You can elevate yourself to be the entrepreneur who has all of her desires. I'm going to show you how on the Elevated Femmes movement. Hi, welcome back to another episode of the Elevated Femmes movement. Today I have Deepak Saini with me, and we are going to be talking about a topic that I think a lot of you women are going to be interested in. And I feel like Deepak's approach to this, let me preface this by saying that Deepak's approach to this is, it's definitely not like based on appearance, on, superficiality, I would say. It's more on the well-being side and how we can love, aging, because hopefully we will age, hopefully we will get older. But the question is, how do we feel good as we age, and what can we do to enjoy getting older? But I'm going to let Deepak get into all this. So Deepak, welcome. You're tuning in from Canada, and so it's so good to connect with people from different parts of the world whenever I have a guest. So
absolutely,
welcome,
Julie.
First of all, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Julia, for having me. And I just want to also say it's not just for the women, it's for the men as well. It's for your husbands, it's for your brothers
Yes.
and your fathers as well. Absolutely. So, sorry, what was the first question? How are things going? Things are going fantastic here in Canada. Finally got summer, it's really actually happened now, or spring. Weather's good, you can go outside and, t-shirt and shorts and not have to be bundled up. And, it's actually fun to take the dog for a walk instead of like being minus 40. So love this time of year. So totally happy with the time of year.
Awesome. So now tell us a little bit about how you got into what you're doing. Tell us a little bit about what you do. But you started out with a pretty traditional, corporate job, and then decided to pivot and became
let me
an
tell you
entrepreneur.
a bit about my story, and I'll be brief. I don't want to take too much time on that, and people can always check me up and learn more. But so my first career as a CPA, professional accountant, and I worked in corporate Canada in the energy sector, and in accounting and finance and that sort of thing. If I go back, I was always the chubby kid growing up. As far back as I can remember, I was always sick all the time, 3-4 times a year, like clockwork. Almost with the seasons changing, I'd get sick, like really sick, chronic bronchitis all the time. As I got a little bit older, at 18 years old, I'd be classified as morbidly obese, so well over 100 pounds heavier than I am now. Again, always chronically sick. They could never figure out what, I had autoimmune condition, but they never could really actually diagnose me. The last thing they thought maybe was actually I might have leukemia, which turned out to be negative, which good, right? But at the one hand, when you're that sick all the time, you almost want to be diagnosed with something, so you can be like, okay, now we know, and now we can move forward, right, instead of this just guessing game and never really feeling 100%. But where it really came ahead to me was just about 9 years ago. My youngest daughter was a baby, like just recently born, and I hurt my back really, really bad. I had no flexion, so I couldn't bend over. So very difficult putting on your socks and shoes, getting in and out of a chair, which includes the toilet. Couldn't do any activities. I had started running at that point and entering some races, and I couldn't golf anymore. I couldn't run, but I couldn't bend over enough to pick her up out of her crib. So I didn't recognize it myself at the time, in hindsight, but, I probably was in depression. Again, I wasn't doing anything, couldn't pick up my daughter. In my older daughter, I couldn't even play with her effectively. So that was kind of the low point, but yet the start of my journey. So in trying to heal my back and find modality, well, let me take a step back. I like to say that the Western medical system wasted 18 months of my health, ineffective treatments, running around through the system, misdiagnoses. I'm sure a lot of your audience can probably, if they haven't witnessed that themselves for themselves personally, a family member or a friend, I'm sure we've all kind of seen this happen, unfortunately. So I took matters into my own hands. I found a modality to heal my back. Some would call it, it's pretty mainstream actually now, and certainly now, 9 years later. But some people might term it, alternative medicine. But in doing that modality, heal my back with lifestyle changes that I implemented to bring inflammation down through my body systemically, primarily through nutrition, but other lifestyle factors as well. Lo and behold, the last 60 of that 100 pounds melted away in a matter of like 5, 6 months, and my autoimmune condition just cleared up, and I basically haven't been sick since. So we're going on 8 plus almost 9 years that I haven't been sick. Again, from someone who got chronically sick multiple times a year, like four or five times a year. So
Wow.
I'm doing something right. So obviously, people only see the outside, right? They only see our bodies. They don't know our internal struggles or what we're going on. But coworkers, colleagues, business associates, they saw the rapid weight loss, and they're like, some people thought I had cancer. Actually, I lost weight so fast, and I already keep my hair pretty short. I have for a long time, but but other people were like, hey, can I buy you a coffee? Can I take it for lunch? What are you doing? So I was like, hey, I read this book. You should try this. I read this article. This is what I'm doing. And pretty soon I got to realize, I'm like, I actually like doing this a lot more than being, an accountant in the corporate world. So, I ruminated that for a while, and then I decided, hey, I'm going to do this, what we now call a side hustle, evenings and weekends, as being a coach. So I got some early certifications and started working with people who were like me back then, weight loss, back pain. But as I evolved myself in what I want for my own health and my own longevity, so I have a publicly stated goal to be a centenarian plus, and that's not the last 20 years being bedridden or living in a home and tubes up my nose. It's controlling my own destiny, living in my own home, playing with my great grandkids, stand-up paddleboarding every chance I get, snowshoeing in the winter, etc. That's what healthy aging means to me. As I evolved my approach to health and long-term health, the people that are attracted to me started to like want to follow that path as well. So then again, I started with weight loss and back pain, and now I work on people helping reverse the effects of aging so that they don't get chronic diseases. So that's what I kind of do now, and that's kind of the niche I've carved out for myself.
Yes, I love that. I think a lot of times we wait until we are already in that, there's that, like, hitting rock bottom phrase that we hear. So a lot of people think like, well, I'm already old. I'm already, my age is already X, right? I'm already 60 years old. I'm already 70 years old. There's nothing I can do, right? I'm already quote unquote old, but I think that there's still so much that we can do. And if you're not, later in life yet, if you're not in your 60s or 70s or 80s, if you're in your late 30s, if you're in your 40s, if you're in your 50s, you can start to pay attention to some of the things that you can do now so that you can get to the, your 60s and 70s and feel better and actually, like you said, reverse some of the less pleasant things about getting older. First of all, let's just say that you wanting to be a centenarian. I mean, that's a pretty cool goal. I mean, how many people, you guys listening or watching, how many people do you know that have said, I want to be, 100 or 100 plus? I don't hear that often. Deepak.
Yep.
So, what is your method? How are you different from other people? Because I want to rephrase this a little bit too, because, reversing the signs of aging, and you correct me if I'm saying this the wrong way, but I think a lot of people tend to think, oh, what does this mean? Does this mean like anti-aging creams and anti-aging products? I think you have a different thought of what it means to actually reverse the effects of aging. So
Absolutely.
can you walk us through?
Yeah, great question. I just want to step back 1 second to something you said earlier. So I just want to make part of the first thing I work with people, is just have them understand, society has this notion of aging. When you get to a certain age, you're supposed to feel this. When you get to a certain age, you're supposed to be on this many medications. When you get to a certain age, you can't do this anymore. That's just a bunch of BS. I don't believe that at all. It's never too late to start, and you can certainly reverse many things, or at least slow down the pace of aging. So again, I'm all about, not everyone has to live to 100 or plus or whatever. And again, it's about quality of life and health span, not lifespan. So, I just want to make that clear with people as well. And yes, to your point, to your question, is a lot of people anti-aging, and that's kind of a marketing term that's used a lot with creams and injections and that sort of thing, sort of more from the cosmetic sense. My take on that is, hey, if you want to look fantastic but die at 60, hey, that's your prerogative. I'd rather look okay or pretty good and healthily live to 100 plus.
Yeah.
So I want to put that notion. That's not what I'm talking about. If you want to do that on top, great, but that's not what I talk about at all. Most people who are in this field, or just health in general, tend to take, they might look at 2, maybe 3 variables when it comes to long-term health, to longevity. I believe there's 7 buckets that one has to work on. And I work on with people. It can vary. I meet people where they're at, but the very first thing is always mindset. I call it mindset and motivation, but it's like, why do you want this goal? Right? I think that's key. So I call it your purpose, your why, your mission statement. So again, for me, just back to what I was saying earlier, I remember how sucky life was when I couldn't pick up my daughter almost 9 years ago. I never want to go back there. So all my decisions, we make hundreds, if not thousands of decisions every day. So, most of my decisions, or at least my conscious ones, are, to move me in the right direction for my goal to live, healthily to 100 plus. So, and that doesn't have to be everyone's, but, to really tie it in, what is it for you? Is it to be around for your kids' graduation, to their marriage, to see your grandkids, to play with your grandkids, to be able to get on the floor and play Lego with them and then be able to stand up again, whatever it is for you, but really tie that in for people, because sheer willpower alone, like, let's be honest. If you're a complete rock star, maybe willpower alone, maybe you can get 2 years. Now, I'm just going to be blunt. Most people are not rock stars. Most people can't do 21 days of just willpower. So when you tie it to something that's important to you, that's really ingrained, call it your heart and your mind, when you have it really tied in, when the going gets tough, when you don't want to get up to go for your walk, when that third slice of cheesecake gets passed by, that's where you're going to tie in, like, no, this is not for me because I know what I'm going for. This is my long-term goals. Whether long-term for you is 5 years, 20 years, or for me, 60 years still, right? So I, work with people, that mindset around that. So that's number one. I think a lot of people miss that, or they only focus on that, or maybe one other thing. So I'll just go through really quickly. I won't go in depth. So mindset and motivation. Obviously, there's a nutrition piece, or controlling your glycemic variability, how much our blood sugar goes and raises. And I'll be the first to admit, I might be the only person who's admitting this. Who knows? That's not true, but there's other people. But there's no one size fits all, right? There's no vegan isn't the best diet, vegetarian isn't the best, carnivore. It depends on you. We're all individual. There's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of generally accepted things that are not good for us, but we're all unique based on culture, ethnicity, genetics, epigenetics, et cetera. So I really take a look at that. And how I eat is different than how my wife eats. We have different genetics. We have different ethnicities. And it's a little bit different than how our kids eat. Even though they're genetically closer to their mom, they're a different life stage. So of course they eat a little bit differently. So these have to be taken into consideration. Then there's the movement piece. That's right for you. I'm a big believer in the effective dose of everything, actually, but especially when it comes around movement. You don't have to run marathons or do, century bike rides or whatever. Like, if you want to, great, but is that actually meeting your goal? Because it might not actually be meeting your goal. So finding the right movement that's for you, that includes balance work and all that sort of thing. Then there's the controlling the automatic nervous system, or our stress response.
Yes.
So sleep falls in there, breath work. I'm going high level. There's a lot of different things that fall into all of these buckets. There's the environmental factors, right? We can't do anything about the environment and what's other, external forces are putting pressure on us through chemicals, et cetera, et cetera. But how do we handle it? How are we going to mitigate the damages to ourselves, to our families? Then the bucket six, it's what I call don't do stupid stuff. So basically, there's a risk reward for every decision we make. And I just try to make people aware of some of those things that they already do in their life. Again, I'm not going to tell anyone what they can or cannot do. That's not for me. That's for you to judge. But if you're going to do X activity, it might make sense to take certain precautions. So let's just have a conversation around that, because those precautions are for your long-term health benefit. And then the last bucket, and honestly, some people only come to me because of this last bucket, but I feel you have to do the fundamentals. If you're not sleeping right, first of all, if you don't have the mindset right, you're not eating right, you're not sleeping right, you're not drinking clean water, you're not breathing properly, bucket number 7 is not going to matter one bit. So we got to get the fundamentals in first. But bucket 7 is the cutting edge in science and technology. And again, I'm not talking about, facial things and injections and Botox and blah, 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 all that stuff. It could mean that maybe. I'm talking the latest cutting edge science that your doctor or your primary caregiver doesn't even know. He probably won't even know about it for 15 years, all the way to, maybe stem cells or exosomes or medical tourism or something like that, and other types of injections, and it could be technology and whatever. So again, I can help, again, I'm not a medical doctor, but I can help people, point them in the right direction, and act as a concierge for them to acquire those things if they so choose. So that's kind of my approach, a very broad-based approach, because I think everything is intermingled. Like you could have the best nutrition, but if you sleep crappy, it's not going to matter. If
Exactly.
you drink the best water, but then you're eating, pesticide-laden vegetables, that's not going to matter. So like you got to take, and not saying that you have to be perfect, but you got to be generally moving in the right direction in all these 7 buckets. At least that's what I believe.
Yeah, I love that you also incorporate the whole nervous system regulation thing, because I think that that's been a missing key from a lot of people's wellness routines. It kind of goes hand in hand with the sleep thing. Like stress and sleep, I think, tend to go hand in hand, not necessarily, but sometimes people, as a fitness coach, people would come to me and tell me like, well, I'm exercising, 5, 6 times a week, and I've cut out all the carbs and I've cut out all the sugar. And then I'm like, okay, well, how's your stress and how are you sleeping? And they're like, terrible. And I'm like, well, that's no surprise to me. So sometimes people think that going to the extremes in terms of like working out and nutrition, that should be like the magic equation. But, you kind of need to be working on in all of those areas that you mentioned in order to best optimize your, your wellness, your well-being, and how you feel and how that shows up in your energy and how you look and all the things. So Deepak, who
Absolutely.
is
Just
oh, go
Julie, just
ahead.
just jump on piggyback on what you're saying there. Like
Yeah.
again, if someone's preparing for like a race, their milestone event, their Mount Everest, so to speak, or whatever the case may be, then okay, yeah, you maybe have to go in this direction and go heavy in one area, fitness or nutrition, whatever the case may be, which is totally fine if that's your goal. But let's not kid ourselves about the longevity aspect. Like there's a lot of things that people do in the short term, and that's great, but it's actually could be potentially detrimental to your long term. So again, it depends where people are coming, what their goals are. Again, I tend to work with people who have that long term vision. They're not trying to be Mr. Olympia, or they're trying to win Boston Marathon, or like those are not the people I work with. I work with the people who like they want to be healthy for the next 40, 50 years. So again, just to your point, it's like depends what your goals are. So.
Yeah, definitely. And I am a marathon runner, but I work with people who are not usually. So, I can relate to wanting to speak to the longevity aspect. And I think the one thing that I often hear from clients, especially when I tend to work with, and in fitness coaching, when I've worked with people in their 60s or 70s, is they want to be fit enough, strong enough, healthy enough to be able to play with their grandchildren. That's always like the number one thing. And I really think that the way we take care of ourselves when we're in our 20s or 30s, and then a little bit later on in life, even I would say even past our 40s, things start to look a little bit differently. And a lot of times, I'm not going to say it goes this way for everybody, but a lot of times it's about being more intentional. It's more, about being more mindful about form, when we're moving our bodies, thinking about like, okay, what are the muscles I'm using right now? Like just slowing down, because number one thing, I'm sure you would agree with this with me, Deepak, is that as we get older, to reduce your chances of getting yourself injured, because when you get injured, just like when you're very sick, then you can't really do anything. Then you can't go for a walk. You can't lift weights. You can't do your yoga. It becomes very hard to actually get the movement in that you want to do, so that you can feel good and so that you can have that be a part of your life. So,
Julie, I want to share one thing I think you would really appreciate with your background as well as your audience and your clients is,
yeah.
So when I work with my clients from that physical point of view, again, what we have to flesh out what are their goals. So let's just make something up here. An example is like, okay, when I'm 80, I want to be able to pick up my grandkid. Well, how much would your grandkid weigh? This age, I don't know, probably like 40 pounds or something. It's like, or whatever that is, right? It's like, okay, so if you want to be able to pick up your grandkid, what is that? That's basically a squat. Basically doing a squat and maybe like a press type of thing if you're going to pick the kid up. Okay, so if you want to be able to do that with 40 pounds at 80, knowing natural declines, and it's going to be different for everyone, of course. How should you be training now, right? If you want to be able to do that let's make up a number. Let's 20 years from now. You want to be able to squat and press up 40 pounds in 20 years. What kind of weight do you need to be doing now? And if you can't do that now, how do we build up so you can? So that even taken into natural declines, when your goal for 20 years from now, you can squat and lift and press 40 pounds. That's kind of how approach I take as from the physical point of view, depending on what people's physical goals are for the future. Again, long-term view. So I think you and your audience would appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that example progression. So, Deepak, if people want to learn more about you and what you do, where can they learn more? I know you have some exciting things coming up. So can you share with us a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. So, I'm all over the social, and I'm sure the links will be posted. So, I think when this interview is going to be released, it's going to be just upcoming in the next little bit here. So I have a series of free workshops that kind of, talks about, the 5 steps to reverse aging, kind of everything we've been talking about today. And we go through some of the stuff we talked about a little bit more in depth. It's a very interactive workshop. I post some questions, people get to think about some of these, sort of powerful questions and that sort of thing. So those are coming up. So that's at deepaksainyhealth.com/workshop. There's a number of them. You can sign up for the time that works for you. Again, they're free. And and then I'll just maybe tease this. And I don't think I've even shared this with you yet, Julia, but I'm going to be launching my own podcast here later this year as well. I'm running my own summit, a reverse aging summit later in December. So if people want to connect with me on social, then they'll kind of be kept abreast of all those changes. But yeah, the most thing that's coming up shortly is these series of workshops. Again, deepaksainyhealth.com/workshop. And I'd love to see some of your audience there.
Awesome. Yeah. So guys, make sure you check it out and learn more about reversing the effects of aging with Deepak's help. So thank you so much, Deepak, for being on here with me today. And if you guys have any questions at all, feel free to send me a message, and we'll see you again next time.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Elevated Femmes movement. I would love to hear your thoughts on the podcast, so please leave us a review. If you know someone who could benefit from the episodes on the show, please share it with them. We need more women elevating to their highest potential, enjoying all the great things in life, having plenty of time freedom for their children and loved ones, while doing things smarter and not harder, and growing a business that improves, not consumes their life. To connect with me and download my free resources, please go to www.juliamhickman.com.